Nice to see you.
Nice to see you also. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much. Come on in. You're going to pop there? All right, great. So I want to give Dr. Hack a proper introduction. He's the director of the Division of Medical Toxicology at Brown University, a professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine at the Warren Alpert Medical School, and a physician in the Department of Emergency Medicine at both Rhode Island Hospital and Miriam Hospital. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the Department of Transportation's new public awareness campaign, The Ripple Effect, talking about impaired driving here in Rhode Island. So you have been involved in both this campaign. You work on other campaigns as well in the state, and you've been involved in emergency medicine for quite some time. So you've done a ton of research on both this, impaired driving. You've done a lot. Let's just put it at that.
Thanks very much.
A lengthy career. So very excited to have you in here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start off by talking a little bit about just what you do in emergency medicine. How often in your career, how often just in your daily work, do you see impaired driving or impaired driving cases come into emergency medicine?
So the sad fact is almost every day I work a shift in the emergency department. I'm caring for somebody that was involved in a drunk driving incident. We average at Rhode Island Hospital about one a day, and that's every single day of the year. I asked my computer people to pull the data, and in the first 79 days of this year, we saw 54 people who were drunk drivers that were cared for in the emergency department. So this is a huge number. We see it almost every single day, and this is an 100% avoidable incident.
That's very compelling. And like you said, it's all avoidable. Talk to me a little bit about, in your videos, so on the Ripple Effect, we'll have a link on our website. We continue to do this, continue to provide this information. There are two video kind of blogs that you are in. You said the stats are just shocking, and you would be shocked if you knew the stats. You just provided some statistics for us. What do these numbers say to you? You're involved in this. You see this every day. What do you think people would feel like if they knew this information, and we're helping them put it out there?
I honestly, I think people would be flabbergasted if they really know the numbers. In the United States, 2 out of 3 people during their lifetimes will be involved in a drunk driving crash, injured from a drunk driving crash, and this is staggering. 2 out of 3 people. Their lives are going to be changed forever potentially. Saying nothing about the lack of the incidence of injury and death, property value, property injuries and insurance changes, and it's staggering.
It's staggering. It's shocking, and you said it in that video yourself. Yeah. It really is. Part of the ripple effect is the fact that looking beyond the point of the people who are involved in these crashes, the people who are directly impacted, it's not just those people. It's people like yourself, the first responders, the people who are giving that first aid care, and their families as well. It's not just the people who are directly involved, but other people. The ripples go beyond those. Talk to us a little bit about how you've been impacted by dealing with those involved in impaired driving crashes.
So, the ripple effect is so optimally named, right? Because it's one stone in the smooth, glass smooth pond that one act ripples out across the entire pond, and this is exactly a simile that's appropriate for this. So it's the person that drinks too much, they become impaired. They make the decision to get behind the wheel and to drive it, not thinking that one simple act of turning the ignition key can change their lives forever, change their passengers' lives forever. Everyone on the street, the oncoming cars. It goes on and on and on. Not to mention the first providers that get called to the scene of these accidents, and the emergency, medical professionals, and people in the emergency department who see this again and again and again, and not infrequently the excuses you hear are so impotent. They're, I didn't realize I was that impaired. Well, Well, that's a terrible thing. I didn't have to go far. I've done it before. The Mothers Against Drunk Driving, statistic on this say that the first DUI arrest is a person that's done it 80 times prior to that first arrest. And every single time they get behind the wheel of a car, they're putting themselves, their passengers, and everybody else on the road in jeopardy.
It's absolutely incredible when you're hearing this. And coming from you, you mentioned those first responders, the medical professionals that are, again, affected time and time again because you're the ones that are working to save people's lives. You mentioned one of the videos that you can see on the Ripple Effect webpage, which we have links to as well. One of the first, I believe it was in your rotations, one of the first experiences you had was witnessing and being involved in the emergency medical field was an impaired driving incident. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? And it was your first time, and it still impacts you today.
For sure. I was a medical student. I was rotating at another institution elsewhere in the country, and it was Christmas Eve, and somebody was very drunk, and they drove the wrong way on the wrong side of the highway and went head-on into a car that was filled with holiday goers, and this drunk driver killed everybody in the car except for the father, who was the driver, and he was brought into the emergency department, and they did trauma resuscitation on everybody involved in it. In the accident, because as providers, we provide care without comment and without judgment, and they did a fantastic job of caring for both the drunk driver and also for his victims, and it was very emotional, and it was very impactful. I never forgot that.
It's stuck with you to this day, and
Sure.
Like you said, your job is to provide care without bias. It has to be extremely difficult, and thankful to the medical professionals who are able to do that time and time again. Let's talk a little bit about your extensive research in toxicology. You've published papers over the years, over 40 reviewed articles, book chapters, so you have a lot of credibility in this industry. We're talking again about the Ripple Effect, the Department of Transportation's campaign about impaired driving. Let's talk a little bit about some of your research in this, not just in alcohol, but in drugs as well. Have you, throughout your research in toxicology, have you seen any changes over the course of the past several years that would imply that things are getting better in this?
In terms of, are people drunk driving less?
Is anything changing, improving, getting better? Are we looking at new technology, which we'll talk about some technology that
Sure.
that you've gotten to in a minute? But are we seeing anything that could combat this? Are we seeing anything that's showcasing that things are getting better, or are we looking at things getting worse? I mean, we're seeing maybe in more states that we're seeing pedestrian accidents in cases where marijuana is legal, so we're seeing maybe that's getting worse. But through your research, are we looking at anything getting better with impaired driving, or are we seeing things taking a turn for the worse?
Things come in ebb and flows. I think impactful events gets the public's attention, and then perhaps the incidence declines, but unfortunately people forget, and they start acting in an irresponsible way again, and then the numbers go back up. So, what do we know from alcohol impaired driving? For sure, the use of alcohol and the multifaceted attention splitting of that are required for safe driving is impaired, So nobody has ever said that drinking alcohol while you're driving, and then driving makes you a better driver. That's not the case. So if you know that you're going to go out and need to get places, find another way to do it. there's a lot of ways to do it.
A lot of ways to do that. I do want to talk about some of the technology that you've helped contribute to making things better. In 2013, you were given an award by the University Emergency Medicine Foundation for the development and investigation of an invention of an alcoholic intoxication assessment tool. It's called Hax Impairment Index. So talk to us a little bit about what this research tool is and how it's making things better. We actually use it here in Rhode Island, just one of the states. Talk to us about what this is, what it does.
So the impairment index is actually quite separate from impaired driving. At Rhode Island Hospital, we take care of alcohol impaired patients, and the index allows a formal assessment of how impaired somebody is. This is not has nothing to do with roadside assessment of somebody's impairment. They're two very separate things. This is a clinical evaluation of impairment, whereas a roadside evaluation is a legal assessment for impairment. So interesting, also deals with intoxicated patients, but the two are completely separate.
Okay. Can this, how do we use this tool effectively? Why is Rhode Island using it? How is this used in the medical world?
So the high score is to assess whether someone can be safely assessed for whether they want to either go into detox program or if they are unimpaired enough to be considered for discharge.
Okay.
So that's what it is. You want to make sure somebody is safe after they have come out of their alcohol intoxication to either go home or to go to a detox program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely helping in the medical field as well, and we use that here in Rhode Island. So it's very interesting, all the forefronts that you've been involved in helping in this state, because you are deeply involved in making this state better and medical field as well. Before we let you go, Doctor, I do want to talk about this because you have been involved in this area for so long, and you are deeply concerned in continuing to raise awareness and to continue the conversation. You're also a photographer, so contributing to this endeavor in many ways. I want to talk to you a little bit about your not only photography skills, but you created a traveling exhibit, Images in Impact. I looked at some of the photos. They're beautifully done. Talk to us a little bit. You're welcome. Talk to us a little bit about what drove you to this, some of the images, and how you decided to pair them.
So I was doing walking around. I love Rhode Island, and I live in East Greenwich, and I love the area, and I get out as much as I can because I do a lot of working and a lot of research and a lot of reading, and I like to be in the fresh air. And I was doing exercise walks all over the place, and what I noticed was along the roadways, people had discarded those small like airplane bottles. Some people call them nips. Just basically, where cars are, not necessarily where people were walking, because I was on the side of the road, and it struck me that these bottles most likely were being tossed by people driving past. So they would, I assume they've been drinking them and throwing them out the window, and it really caught my eye, and it struck me that if this indeed was from somebody who was drinking while they're driving, that this essentially could be, a body on the side of the road. And I started, making a study of these tossed away bottles, and that's what the exhibit's about. They're all in 12 of the 13 are black and white. They're high contrast and they're sort of in your face, and it's reflective of, maybe that could be a person, laying there, which is horrible. But I really wanted to start a conversation. So, art is all about stimulating people to think about things. And if it starts a conversation between a parent and a child, or among families or among friends and loved ones, to not drink and drive, I think it's done its job.
And that was on display. It's kind of a traveling exhibit. Where can people get a chance to look at your work?
Well, it's going to, I think we're going to have an opening. It's going to hang at the Providence Center for Photographic Arts for the month of April. I think I don't have an opening date. I don't remember it
That's
just
okay.
off the top of my
I didn't
head.
mean to put you on the spot there.
But it'll be there for the month, and I hope people come and see it and talk to their loved ones about this.
That's excellent. Well, thank you. It's very well done. If you do get a chance to see it, and of course check out the Ripple Effect. The webpage will have the link on our website as well. Dr. Jason Hack, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today about the Ripple Effect and so much more, and continuing. Hopefully, we can have you back to talk about some of the other work that you've done as well too.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Dr. Jason Hack, thank you so
Bye
much.
now.
We'll have more information on the Ripple Effect on our webpage, GoLocalProv.com as well. All right, we're going to switch up the conversation here a little bit. I'd like to say hello and welcome